Now, there's a lot of work that we got to do to get to a place of rest, isn't there? Think about it. Like the part of adulting that I did not sign up for and did not read in the fine print to know was in the contract was that you got to do a lot of work to get to rest. Like you want to go away on vacation and rest, right? So there's plane tickets got to buy, hotels to reserve, car rentals to arrange. And then you got to prepare your home that you're not going to be there, perhaps getting like a dog sitter or a house sitter. So when you pick up the mail, then you got to clean everything way cleaner than if you were just going to be there to make sure that you're not going to come home to like rotting leftovers in the fridge or fermenting trash you forgot to take out to the curb. And then when all the work is done and all the travel is behind you, finally you can like chill for a couple days, and then you got to pack everything up and head back. Right? Sometimes there's so much work that goes into vacation that you need a vacation when you get home just to recover from vacation. Now today's passage has some hidden code words within it that takes our minds back to some Old Testament roots of rest. So we got to check this out. The passage starts off with an interesting time stamp. How? 6 days later. Okay, since what? Well, the huge revelation about Christ's character. Peter's confession. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. That just happened in the previous chapter, and that's a huge revelatory moment in Matthew. The readers have spent half the book getting to this revelation, and we've spent like 6 weeks in Epiphany preparing for that moment. So then 6 days after the revelation of Christ's identity and the implications of crucifixion, resurrection that Peter was not a very big fan of, and the work of knowing that the Christian journey is one of this kind of self-sacrificial giving of ourself and our life. Then comes this trip up the mountain. Well, I'm not sure which mountain it is, but they're heading up a mountain. Now, two images are really interesting here. Now, first, the mountain. That's a really cool image in the Bible, because in Bible narratives, climbing a mountain was a journey of someone who was about to meet God. So two large stories that included from the Old Testament are Moses climbing up Mount Sinai, right, to receive the law that God wrote down on those stone tablets for God's people. And then there was Elijah who ascended a mountain exhausted and totally depressed to have this therapy session with God. And Moses ascended alone because the people were too afraid to ascend the mountain and they didn't want to meet with God, so they just sent him up all by himself. But they were all invited so that they could all become a kingdom of priests in the world, but they didn't want that job, so they sent Moses. Now, Christ takes 3 disciples with him up the mountain, almost so that they can kind of like revisit that failure on the part of God's people for the sake of the world, and then take up the task that everybody should have been doing in the first place. Okay, that's the first image. The second image is that of the 6 days motif. Right? In Genesis, God made the world in 6 days and then rested on the 7th. So this transfiguration event takes place on the 7th day. And this is a Hebrew audience. They're going to pick up on that right away. So this should tell us that God is remaking the world with love, and we are the priests within that new world. And Matthew calls it the kingdom of God. So we have to tune our eyes to see differently. We don't have to work to make ourselves acceptable for this world. When that work is already done, we just need to see it. Because to see the image of God in you is rest. This transfiguration moment is important because one of my favorite theologians of all time, John O'Donohue, he's a poet, theologian, he said, "Spirituality is the art of transfiguration. We should not force ourselves to change by hammering our lives into any predetermined shape. We do not need to operate according to the idea of a predetermined program or plan for our lives. Rather, we need to practice a new art of attention to the inner rhythm of our days and lives. This attention brings a new awareness of our own human and divine presence." Dang, John O'Donohue. Because when our energies are freed up from trying to become acceptable, we can then place that energy into acts of justice. And all spiritual practice is to develop this seeing in you. And then you can see it in another, in the world, and can work for justice to help others experience it for themselves.